Hello and welcome to ETCFO viewers. This is the digital roundtable titled 2023 Dawns and Where Do We Go From Here? We are today joined by a group of eminent CFOs to discuss the outlook for 2023 and what has transpired in 2022. So without much ado, let me quickly start introducing the eminent panelists, starting with Nandakumar S. Tirumalai, who is the CFO at Tata Chemicals. Hi, Nandu.
Hi, good afternoon.
Next we have Mr. Vineet Singhal, who is Group CFO at Gaursons Group. Hi, Vineet.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Next, we have Mr. Nagesh Bailur. He's CFO at Randstad India. Hi, Nagesh.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And the last but not the least is we have charismatic Neetu Jain, who is CFO at Volvo Construction. Hi, Neetu.
Hi, good afternoon, Manu. Good afternoon, all.
Okay, so let us start this conversation, the eminent CFOs, with the lessons of 2022. If I could start with Nandu, you, in respect of what are the key learnings that you will take from 2022, and if you could just also share the sort of challenges that you have witnessed and how you have gone on to tackle them. Yeah.
Thank you, Manu. And see, on the current year, what has happened is that in terms of the main challenges we faced was in terms of the whole supply chain thing. For example, in Tata Chemicals and this industry as a whole, very important aspect is the cost of gas, cost of fuel is there. And we saw entire disruption happening in terms of the cost and availability starting the Ukraine war, and does not come down as of now. Even today also, it's got a much high prices. So this year has been challenging in terms of how to maneuver the selling price based upon the high cost price. Because we've never seen such price in the past. For example, look at the cost of gas we buy in UK. We have a plant in Manchester. We're buying at around 50 cents per therm for a decade. That became £5 or even £8. So it's unimaginably high. So the challenge was how to even look at those costs and what strategy we had to have to pass on those costs was a very big learning for the current year, Manu. Two was the entire interest rates going up. We have debts overseas. We have debts in US, UK, Kenya, and Singapore, and the rates have shot up dramatically. Therefore, in terms of that had an impact in terms of financials, and that also led to inflation and therefore a risk of recession happening in the current year. So we saw some kind of a demand coming back a bit in some geographies, especially if you ask me in Europe and some parts of the world where the recession's impact was being felt. So I think challenge was in terms of mainly supply chain, how to handle that is what we have felt.
So, Nandu, before I jump into others, can you share a quick piece of learning, like in terms of both how you went, what was the formula for you to tackle the price maneuvering as well as the interest rate part that you mentioned?
So the formula was there to be very active in terms of the modeling. For example, X amount of change in the price means how much selling price. So one has to be very agile because every hour it will change. And customers are not used to paying such a large price for what we're selling. Therefore, the ability to convince customers that the prices have gone up by 10x and therefore it's a pass-through, otherwise we can't survive, was also a new learning. How to engage with customers who for decades have never seen such a price. So customer engagement was very important, being agile was very important, and giving the right cost metrics to the business team on what is the impact of X, Y, Z on the selling price. So quickness, agility was very important here.
Okay. You mentioned and emphasized the importance of agility. Much appreciated. I'm sure Vineet is going to share the same sort of opinion. So Vineet, let me quickly come to you for your views on your lessons from 2022.
See, the key lesson has been the balance. The biggest challenge and the key lesson for us in 2022 has been the balancing the growth as well as the profitability, which included staying focused on profitable or potential portfolios and reprioritizing the strategic projects given the limited resources. See, since we are in the real estate industry, the efficient working capital is the key. Since working capital is the oxygen that keeps the real estate industries healthy, especially in terms of economic distress, especially with the second half, the prices of raw materials going sky high. And we had to pass some of the price increase in these raw materials to our customers. And the challenges which I foresee heading into 2023 is especially in the real estate industry, we are facing a lot of problems in the talent acquisition and retention. Finding people with the right skills to staff their departments is a critical challenge for us. And then preventing fraud, investing in cybersecurity is another challenge which we are facing at this point of time.
Okay, that is an important set of challenges that you mentioned about, and those challenges CFOs are day in day out finding solutions to tackle. I'm sure, but let me now come to the next eminent CFO, and who is Nagesh Bailur, CFO at Randstad. So Nagesh, quick views from you on your learnings and lessons from 2022 and challenges.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Manu. And I think this year once again reinforced the fact that we are living in a VUCA world. Just when we thought COVID was behind us, the war broke out. It just continues to reinforce that recognizing, managing risks and the controllables, is key to our survival in a lot of ways. In Randstad India, we had a trailblazing first half. I think a lot of records broken in terms of growth and profitability, but the second half actually slowed down. And I refer to first half from a calendar perspective. While one part of our business continues to gain momentum, we see some sectors where the hiring has slowed down a bit. Particularly the volume hiring on the technology side has slowed down in the last quarter. 22, we made some big investments. We added new footprint. We positioned our business for growth. We continue to see great demand for flexi side of the staffing business in the industry, particularly the tech talent. And in fact, that stayed true throughout the year. Randstad, as you may know, is the largest company global in the staffing industry, and we are about $24 billion globally. And one of our ambitions in the country is to become a bigger part of the pie. And there we made some good progress as we grew our revenues much faster than a lot of other places across the globe. In fact, as Vineet also pointed out, the classic dilemma of growth versus margins continues to hold good for us. Attrition is always a challenge. 23, I think we are again bullish. We are quite bullish in terms of what we see. We have some aggressive assumptions built into our plans as well. While the rest of the globe probably will see some degrowth, we think the domestic market and the India story is going to be very strong. And having said that, of course, we have some challenges in the form of fear of recession. We suddenly have a new COVID scare now, and the impact on supply chain, and of course, the way geopolitical situation plays out in the rest of the world.
Okay, that is a very comprehensive view, Nagesh. So I'll quickly come to Neetu for her initial comments on her lessons from 2022. Yeah, Neetu.
Yeah. Okay, Manu. I would echo with Nagesh in terms that we are living in a VUCA world, and we are getting impacted continuously. So I would say that the dynamic nature of the market continues, and it continues to be unpredictable and very short-lived. It's changing so frequently that for us to come up to speed is the key. And the challenges what we have been facing is that market demand has been very erratic. It just keeps on changing. The events which have been unfolding in 2022, right from the war which was between Russia and Ukraine, high inflation which we are witnessing across the globe, all of them are impacting us also in India in some way or the other. And I would say the organizations are getting very less time to react to the market. So preparedness is very high level. Preparedness to face this is very high level. Another 2 points which have been mentioned by Vineet and Nagesh is also, I would also say that high attrition, because this is the challenge we are also facing in this industry. though this industry has never faced high attrition being from a manufacturing setup, but yeah, this is also one of the key challenges for us to conserve the knowledge within the organization and to keep the right flock of people around us, because they are the key. So I would say that quite mix, and 2023, the challenges will not be very different. It will still remain the same. So market time to react is very less for us. So to be continuously agile and being very proactive.
Okay. So continuously agile and being proactive are the two important formulas for Neetu to come up with the speed that is required in the VUCA world. We will now again we start with Nandu and go specific here. So Nandu, you already mentioned about the global supply chain challenges as well as how you dealt with them. But if we talk about 2023, with the interest rate environment continuing to be where it is, with the rising rates continuing for the time and growth also slowing down, how do you specifically continue to look to continue your convince your customers for the price increase that you may take further going ahead?
Yeah. So, but compared to the current year, next year, I think prices may come down, because looking at the price of coal or gas, it went to a peak in 22, and that may, I think, come down a bit next year. Therefore, I'm saying may not be a big problem in terms of the when prices come down, it's easier. But having said that, in terms of our most important element is fuel. We consume a lot of power and steam in chemical industry. You need power and steam here, and therefore we have to also talk to customers and keep engaged. But we also have what they called carbon tax. Like in UK, for example, we pay about 80, 90 pounds a ton of CO2 as a carbon tax, which also has to get passed on. So these are new costs coming in here. So we are engaged with the customers continuously in all geographies, or that wherever new taxes come, it should be a part of the contracting itself, or have a threshold that if it goes beyond X per ton, I had passed it on to you. But now that's being accepted in the market, because when the customers are seeing that there is value in what we are saying. Because what we're saying is what is there in the market. Ultimately, we can't survive if the cost can't get passed on completely. So therefore, the customers are also now looking at these kind of factors more positively and able to do a pass through of all the costs we are adhering to here.
So inflation challenge is behind you, like the maximum pain as a CFO you have already taken into.
I would say in terms of our input cost, I think global freight cost has come down. So freight is now coming down. The coal prices now almost 2/3 of the peak, and gas is coming down. So broadly, I would say the peaks have in a way gone, but never know. With now the winter being severe in lots of parts of Europe and US, the gas price can always go back. But broadly, we feel that the commodity cycle in our input cost have seen a peak, but we never know how the world reacts next year. We never seen such times. One can't predict for sure. We've seen number of black swans happening very short period of time. So while one has got a view, but one is never sure how the world is next year.
Okay, interesting. Nobody can speculate the trajectory of commodity cycle. And Vineet, I guess the similar sort of view you also would have. How do you see the overall commodities from here on? Raw material inflation for you yourself have also narrated your story in terms of passing the cost to the customers. So how do you see the specific challenges and rate interest, of course, the rising interest rate scenario, the impact in your sector? Yeah.
See, we have been in there has been around 180 to 200 basis points in the overall weighted average cost of funds. And what we have been trying to do is we have been in discussions with the financial institutions to actually pass on the entire share of the increase in the MCLRs to us, and we plan to be a little bit more cautious on the new projects launch, and then we are introducing different schemes where we absorb a little bit portion of the rate increase in the housing loans, so that customers don't share the entire burden of the increased home loans for the new sales we are talking about. So we try to absorb the little bit of increase in the home loan rates, though it takes a bit of a we take it with a bit of pinch of a salt, but that's how our industry works. We can't really, and that is impacting our margins big time. And we envisage that this is going to be the situation in 2023 also.
Okay, so that is not as strong as India growth story as you are. I mean, you are not painting that greater story for your sector that way. If I could get a sense, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's a realistic.
So next, I'll go. Yeah, please finish, Vineet. Yeah.
Whenever there is an increase in MCLRs, real estate has to be ready with all these shocks.
Yeah, understand. Next is to Neetu. If I could come to you first in this sort of round. So Neetu, again the same inflation question, the raw material pricing. You also happen to be in a sector which is dependent or a function of the commodity cycles pricing. So how do you view that entire commodity cycle going forward for your industry going into 2023? Yeah.
So Manu, I would put it across that, yeah, there have been challenges and we are getting impacted because of various geopolitical disruptions which are happening everywhere. And we as an organization are working towards localization. So localization is the name of the game. And all our efforts and energies are diverted towards what best we can make within India. So this is something which we are working towards, and I would say that we can't do anything much about the freight cost. So this is something which we have to take it, and I mean all the organizations are facing this challenge on the cost side when it comes to the freight. So the whole thing is that how do we offset any of these costs which are coming through all of these increases, whether it is the inflation, whether it is the forex, or it is the freight cost, is the price corrections. And yes, we are going ahead with price corrections in the market. That's one of the important factors which we are doing continuously, in fact. How do we ensure that some of the costs which are basically from the input cost of material, how do we somehow pass it on to our customers with the proper transparency, of course. And also at the same time, we are putting a lot of Six Sigma tools as a methodology to bring down the cost. So those are some of the important key things which we are putting in our organization, strategizing the entire purchase pattern to ensure that our input cost is somehow managed.
Okay, that's good to see. But I think the sentence that you mentioned, that you have to take it. You cannot do much about it. I think, if I get the sense, yeah. Is that something similar in your consulting industry, Nagesh, which is facing this talent shortage or the right talent challenge?
I think talent shortage or attrition, for that matter, is a common theme across the country, or for that matter across the globe, in a lot of ways, right? We operate in two parts of the industry we are in. One is on the perm side, other one is on the flex, which is the temp part of staffing. On the perm, obviously, the one way to look at it is, the more the attrition, the more the opportunities for us, because you have more people coming to us for replacements, hiring, and that actually, gives a fillip to where we work on or where we operate. On the flex side, I think it is a risk, because the more people quit, I think we'll have to still support our clients in terms of those aspects. Now, as I said in my opening comments, in the first half of this year, I think we did quite well, but I think we are seeing a gradual slowness in terms of the hiring appetite in the industry in the last 3-4 months, if I can say that, on the perm side. While there are industries which still continue to have a huge hunger in terms of hiring, there are some sectors, particularly on the volume side, on the tech side, which have slowed down. On the flex side, I think we continue to see a great appetite in terms of wanting to grow more. They are looking at more flexibility. Our clients are asking us more talent on the tech side in particular. So it's a mixed bag for us. And on a whole, I think from a company perspective, I think we have had a good year. I think, as I said, we are looking for a continued growth in the coming year as well.
Okay. This is again a very comprehensive overview that you have given, Nagesh. I want to quickly, take this conversation to a very important contextual theme, and that is of recession. And we have already touched that topic in somewhat way. But again, if I can start, Neetu, with you this time, what is your view on recession as a CFO? And if you can also, tell your assessment. About this new COVID variant that is doing the rounds. How worried are you or alarmed you are about it in respect to the situation that's going to be there across the world? Yeah.
Okay. Manu, I would say that recession is already there. I mean, whether we accept it or not, we are seeing it in US, China, Europe, and how deep it is and how long it will be difficult to predict. And somewhere or the other, India is so much connected with the entire value chain or with the entire supply chain as well, that we are also getting impacted to a certain extent. So as you mentioned, the second point which you asked that about the new COVID wave, which we are seeing in China, and our dependence on the imports which are coming on China, we are on top of it, actually looking at the shipments which are coming from China, what is the lead time we have, how much covered we are, is there any, are we looking at any other issues in the entire process when it comes to the imports coming from China. Plus from other neighboring countries, for example, Korea and Japan. So we are closely monitoring all these countries in terms of the imports, what we are doing from them. And at the same time, parallelly, as I said, that localization is one thing which we are consciously working on. So we are also looking at our local suppliers, their preparedness, to see how quickly they can come up to speed, so that we do not end up into huge dependence on China if it outbreaks into a different level altogether.
Okay, Nandu, let me come to you now. What is your view on recession as a CFO? Are you worried as of now or alarmed? And what is your view on the COVID situation building in China and its implications for other countries, including India?
So, Manu, on the recession part, if you ask me, my view is that recession looks unlikely in the US. Europe, it looks more likely. And India is, of course, going very strong. So it's actually an opportunity for our industry because there's a new thing called Europe plus one, which is there in terms of where, with Europe struggling, can India step into that shoes and can the industry improve? So it's an opportunity for us, I feel, than a negative point here. But it can, of course, maybe impact the exports of the country. That's different. But for chemical industry as a whole, recession in Europe is an opportunity for India, is what I feel. But likelihood of that happening in US for me seems unlikely because we have exports happening from our factory in the US across US and South and America zone, which is going on well. So we export to a number of sectors like construction, automobile, and various things here, and that's not stopping. So we feel based upon the this kind of demand coming in well, a recession in the Americas looks less likely, whereas Europe looks more likely. India is shining star, and China. I don't have much view on the COVID part. I don't because we don't track it so much. But having said that, China is important to us because in the soda ash space, chemical, half of the world production they make and they consume also. So anything happening in China, it impacts the whole world. But in our industry, because they produce and consume, and the balance is less, not much really, that doesn't impact us too much. But in case they go into recession for, let's say, China, and their demand collapses because of COVID, then they could start exporting commodity into the world, and that could impact the world prices. Okay, so all those things are very uncertain, Manu. So really, I think COVID variant is pretty new, and we'll have to watch out for it as we watch for any other event happening in the world.
Okay, so if that scenario happens, then the prices will fall, right? Like
we don't know because let's say that's one aspect of it here. For other aspect, let's say government gives support to the industry for construction. I think 2 weeks back they gave a package for the property market to improve. That could also be a spurt. So no one knows in terms of how it's going to impact here. While demand may come down, the government can do something to boost the whole industries here. Or one more thing happening in China is because the ESG concerns on the factories, they're again shutting down some factories here and there, which means if they stop the factories which are emitting huge amount of carbon, that may also contract supply. So ultimately it will be even some game. But China is such a huge number that very difficult to predict anything much about the country. But actually, it's quite tough. One can't make a call in terms of what's going to happen there. So keeping China out, I'm saying that Europe recession is favorable to India.
Okay, yeah, the plus one stress that you mentioned.
The Euro plus one, yeah.
Yeah, correct. Vineet, you have been listening very patiently, but because Nandu was so articulate in his comments, I had to continue, let him continue. But Vineet, let me come to you now, of course, for your views on recession as a CFO, and what is your assessment of the COVID situation?
See, while the consensus is that a global recession is likely sometime in 2023, it is already there in some European countries. It is impossible to predict how severe it will be or how long it will be. Though every recession is not as painful as 2007 or 2009 Great Recession, but of course, every recession is of course painful. My take is India is unlikely to be immune to the global recession. India is not a major global exporter, but the US and European Union exports account for around 30% of global exports. Hence, India will have an indirect impact on the direct and indirect slowdown in the US and the European Union. And as far as the new COVID variant is concerned, I think India has been very well vaccinated, and most of the people have been impacted, and I don't think the vaccine in China has been very, very effective. So that's why we are seeing the cases in China really splurging up. And I am one of those who remain positive in all this situation. So I see that India should not be much worried, or India will be much, or rest of the world will be much impacted by the new variants in China.
Okay, not every recession is going to be as painful as 2001 was, but of course it is painful, the recession. And second is, of course, we are hopeful that the China situation won't develop in the same intensity, even if it were to, in India, because of the vaccine situation that you express optimism about. So is that the same sort of confidence? Is the same sort of confidence being shared by the consulting CFO, who is Nagesh? Yeah, Nagesh?
Yes, Manu, I think I agree with most of what my co-panel members just said. I think it's a mixed bag in a lot of ways. While many experts think there is a recession on the anvil, I think it's just impossible to predict how deep it will be. And recession, for all is there in a lot of countries today, but it's a technical recession, right? And the technical recession is all about degrowth for a couple of quarters. And there's so many uncertainties. Just when we thought COVID was behind us, the war, I do not know how long it will last. I think my personal opinion is, will we see a recession? I think probably yes. In terms of how strong, how severe, it will be very difficult. And some of the macroeconomic indicators do point to economic downturn. And India is not going to be insulated from a lot of global economic shifts. Some slowdown will impact. We'll probably see some headwinds. But I think India is positioned extremely well to navigate that downturn compared to all of its peers. Low leverage, demography being favorable, stability with the government, consistent policy making. The progress we have made on the digital side, you can name it. I think we have it. GST has matured. In fact, I think the geopolitical situation could actually, in fact, favor countries like India with the China plus, or to Nandakumar's point, Europe plus one. I think it will actually spur a growth in the country. Recession driving investments to India, recession elsewhere driving investments to India, looking for cost arbitrage or de-risking themselves. So I think my take is there could be recession for all but I think from an India perspective, I think there's nothing to worry. I think we are very optimistic in terms of our growth plans.
Okay, and I mean, if I could also get a sentiment from you in respect of what is your assessment of the situation in China and its larger implications. Of course, you are a consulting industry, but in general, if the disruptions happen, then How do you see the impact on India as a CFO?
So a couple of things. One, as a global company, we don't have a big operation in China. But what could happen in China could actually drive growth in India, right? When people look at China plus, when China slows down, where do they grow? India is obviously a prime candidate. So such scenarios, if they play out, I think India will be a big beneficiary. And as a staffing industry, I think we have a lot to gain if that happens. Now, obviously, I do not hope it happens because end of the day, it is not something which all of us enjoy in terms of the human cost which it entails. But overall, I think bottom line, I don't think COVID is a thing which we are worried about at this point in time, even if it plays out in China. Globally, I think, particularly in India, we are all well vaccinated. We have had some good safeguards, good practices, which we have learned over the last 2 years. So if it does actually play out very severely in China, I think there will be a lot more to gain for India from an economic perspective.
Okay, and Nagesh, quick again a follow-up question to you, which is key. It has been it is being widely sort of talked about that 2022 was a year of resignations, great resignations. 2023 could be a year of great layoffs. So how optimistic are you as a CFO?
So I do not really believe the great resignation, great layoff story, to be honest with you. I think people continue to look for good companies to work for. They continue to look for work-life balance, compensation, employer reputation. We still look for flexibility. I think gig as an option is here to stay. There is a lot of positivity in terms of hiring in companies across the industry, tech in particular. Bangalore, NCR, Mumbai, all the big metros, in fact, have been adding a lot of jobs. Obviously, we have seen layoffs in small cohorts. There have been some news which have had layoffs both in the country and outside as well. But I think it's been more than set off with strong hiring intentions. And specifically on layoff, I think it's not a decision which anyone should take lightly. While layoffs allow the company to benefit in the form of lower employee cost, it comes with a lot of significant costs, right? When the tide turns, hidden cost like the impact of layoffs having on the remaining workers being extremely demotivated, customer retention, public perception of the company. So layoffs in the long run causes a lot of damage to the company. And I think most companies, I'm assuming, take that as a last resort before they exhaust all other options. So I don't think that should be a big concern, particularly as we live in a country like India, which is on a growth spurt at this point in time.
Okay, that is an interesting view, of course, Nagesh. Let me quickly jump to Nandakumar and Nandu. To seek his views on a very important topic, which is occupying a very important space in the minds of the CFOs, and that is ESG. So Tata Chemicals, anyways, is a company in that sustainability environment. So Nandu, if you can just share your views as a CFO, how important is ESG for you, and what is your take on it, the challenges and the good part of it?
Sure. So if we look at the word ESG, I think on the SNG, Tata Group is ahead of the curve in terms of society and governance part here. And I will talk about the E part on the environmental emissions part. Tata Chemicals emits about 4 million tons of CO2 every year across the world. And why does CO2 come? Because we are burning coal and gas to generate steam to make chemicals. So it's an inherent part of my manufacturing that I have to burn something to generate CO2. So there is a plan to decarbonize over a point in time. In fact, in UK, they implemented the first industrial scale carbon capture plant in a Manchester plant here. It captures the almost half of the CO2 into, have used that to make bicarbonate. So that's one action being taken here. Apart from that, we're looking at natural gas as a bridge between coal and the whole next fuel. And of course, India gas is not available in all parts of the country. So we're trying to see how we can use more of the gas in US, for example, here. So trying to use this bridge fuel where we can to bring down CO2. But having said that, 4 million ton CO2 is not small. And there are enough plans to bring it down over a point in time. But as we expand capacities, obviously, you have to be adding more CO2. So it's a more like you have to be emitting and bringing it back. But there are enough and more plans, Manu. But having said that, as a CFO, one of the key important jobs which I've been doing, which all of us are doing in this panel and across the country, is educating the investor community on the ESG part, because we are the one of the spokesperson for this, for the investors and the other agencies here. So we are getting more educated on the ESG front from our business people here, and we're communicating the strategies of ESG into the other parts of the world, like either the investors or banks, etc. here. And there are also avenues available in terms of where we can, in a way, start taking funding or loan, which are ESG linked loans. So that's one more new things happening in the world, where I can maybe draw it a bit cheaper than normal. But because a lot of banks have a certain fund allocated for ESG. So accessibility of funds is much easier now if you have a ESG plan. So many people have a part of the fund allocated only for ESG. So accessibility to those funds is now increasing. So there is more access to funds for corporates like us, and CFOs have avenues. So broadly, I think what is happening is more education is happening, there's more communication happening. And of late, we also have all the agencies like Moody's, S&P getting into a rating of ESG apart from the rating for financials part here. So a new thing happening is engaging with them on how the rating Tata Chemicals, on what parameters, and therefore we're getting more educated on the whole part, Manu. It's a new thing for CFOs.
New thing for CFOs. Okay. How new is this for you, Vineet? If I could ask you the ESG bit of it, and how are you taking this in your side of things?
Not really, Manu. I see an acceleration in the transition from traditional financial reporting to enhanced corporate reporting model that encompasses financial and ESG reporting. See, ESG efforts are understandably good for company stakeholders, community, and larger society. But a strategic focus on ESG can be good for a business, and especially for real estate, who really are barred from doing the construction when the AQI goes up. And so as a Gaursons, we have been really focusing on the ESG things. What we have done is we have installed STP water plants in our townships, and we are coming up with a huge investments in for few of our malls and hotels. We are installing solar plants. We are coming up with a 15 megawatt plant in somewhere in Mahoba, Uttar Pradesh, where we are going to we're going to have the units, and then we are going to this trade off in our malls in here in Greater Noida and Noida. So while no investment approach can address all our problems, ESG investments can really play a key role in both raising awareness and allowing investors to actively work to reshape the path that help contribute to the challenge we are fighting against.
Let me discuss the last sub-theme of this conversation and start with Neetu, in fact. Neetu, if you could just, sum it up for us in respect of how much the forecasting and in the predictive analytics of the CFOs can help in navigating this uncertain macro environment.
So first is, Manu, I would say that Volvo as an organization itself has a very robust forecasting model, and it has been doing fairly well for us. But apart from that, using a forecasting model, how are we looking at the industry? It is more to do with being closer to the customer. So I would say it is not only restricted to the sales organization, but also to we as CFOs, that how connected we are to the business in terms of knowing what's happening with our customers. We are looking closely at the government policies, if there are any schemes which are being launched, which can be used, which can help us to have better prediction in our overall demand. Otherwise, on the seasonality, yes. But I would say that overall, being very close to the customer, connected to the customer, gives a lot of insights that how it is moving further. Okay, interesting. Nagesh, you want to add on this a bit on accurate forecasting, like how we can have accurate forecasting, and what can be its best implications in a scenario like this, where we are facing elevated inflation still, high interest rates, as well as the imminent fears of recession, as you pointed here.
So, Manu, I think I would agree with what Neetu just said. I think when it comes to accuracy in forecasting, I would first start with how well do we know our customer, right? Do we understand her well, her behavior, or for that matter, the industry they belong to? How do they react to change? Do we understand the processes well enough? Their processes, I mean. Is the customer seasonality built in? Do we react fast enough to market changes? Two, I think it's also about the quantity and quality of data we have and our ability to leverage that meaningfully. Right? Big data is a boon only if you know what to do with it, right? And use technology to churn out analysis to use it well enough for our forecasting needs. And third, as once again Neetu pointed out, is all about ownership. Forecasting is not a finance only exercise, right? It's an important activity with ownership across all parts of the business, functional leaders, business leaders, down below in various levels. Everyone needs to be involved in it and should have a very clear understanding and what their role is. So I would probably pick these three areas for us to come out with a good forecasting in terms of accuracy.
Okay. So I think we are inundated with a lot of questions, and I want to quickly jump to them and start taking them for our eminent audience, CFOs. So let me start with a question from Sandeep Chatterjee. He's asking what should be the key priorities of a CFO in 2023. So Neetu, you want to start? You want to take this?
Yeah, sure. I would say that first is be conservative because that's what we have to really look at. Another important thing is I put it across as 3C. So customer, be very close to the customer so that you know that what is in it for us, how well we can integrate this into our business. Second important thing is cost, how quickly we are adapting to the cost and how agile are we in terms of controlling the cost. And the third C is basically cash. So conserve cash. So I would put it across as 3C. This is the mantra which we CFOs should really be having in place in 2023 as well. Customer, cost, and cash.
Okay, customer, cost, and cash is what should be the focus areas of a CFO. Nandu, I want to quickly assess your views on the top priorities of the CFO, and if you could just quickly lay down in respect of the challenges that you see in those specific priorities.
Yeah, I think Neetu was spoken about 3 C's. I made 2 C's here, Neetu, cost and cash. So I won't repeat that here. I think the focus should be, in my view, apart from what Neetu has mentioned in terms of working capital, and therefore sharp focus on how to deleverage with the high interest cost, interest is going up now. How do we extract cash from business? So I think extreme focus on cash is what I would say is the important priority. Apart from that, on the non-business part, how to automate finance function more and more is one of the key important tasks for me as a CFO next year. How do you automate the finance functions much more than what is there? And therefore, and also analytics better. So using IT, digital automation in a bigger way is a very important task for me next year. And importantly, as covered by Neetu, the 3 C's are also important to me next year.
Okay, so let me quickly ask you a couple of audience questions, Nandu. So this is from Lakshmi Kanta Das, gentleman Lakshmi Kanta Das. He's asking which industry sector is going to be more impacted in the recession. So as a CFO of an eminent company, could you throw some insights? Which industries you think, from your lens as a CFO, is going to be very badly hit, and what sort of precautions those industry CFOs should take?
So I think those industries having a huge export focus may get impacted because if they are exporting to Europe or let's say other countries, that could be impacted. So all the exporting sectors should be watchful.
Okay, that's an interesting take. Let me quickly come to Nagesh for his views in respect of his focus areas or priority areas. As one query also asked this question, the priorities of the CFO in the next year. Yeah, Nagesh.
Yeah, I think as Neetu and Nandakumar mentioned, I think the 2 C's are very obvious. That is core to what we do as CFOs. The only couple of other things which I would probably add is the driving the digital agenda for not only the functions, but for the company as a whole, because what happens to the company has a bearing on our finances. It's about the company becoming more agile, more efficient, customer delight. Everything is has a factor in terms of the way we grow as a business. In databases, getting meaningful data out. And the other thing which I would probably focus for myself is driving business growth as a frontline partner to our business teams. Identify opportunities to grow new markets, knowing our customers better, managing our internal structures. Customer centricity, I think that is absolutely key, external or internal, across the organization.
Okay, Shashi Singh has a specific question to Nagesh, and he's asking, does he think AI will impact employment in the country? Will it?
I think it will impact in some way, but I think more than impacting us, it's going to create a lot more opportunities in terms of what are the possibilities when AI comes into the picture. So that will probably be my short answer, because I think this is a debate which has been going on for years and centuries, right? When machines come, what happens to labor? I think machines came and we just had incremental employment opportunities. So the same thing should play out when AI comes, or robotics. You have blockchain. You have a number of things which is playing out in the market, in the industry today. So it's going to happen. It will have impact on certain jobs, but for every job which it will replace, I think there will be 3 more jobs which will be created.
Can AI take the job of the CFO?
Yeah, it can, depending on how smart the AI is. I think when you have AIs or robots replacing humans, I don't think CFO is a big deal.
Okay, another specific question for you, Nagesh. This is by Aparna Jain. She's asking, in the recruitment business currently, what are the pressures being seen towards maintaining margins given the macros? And are you seeing any escalations on the tech cost?
So margin pressures are always there, right? It will continue to be there. I think more and more we'll have our clients pushing us down on margins. I think the more and more our offerings become commoditized, the margins are going to take a hit. But the answer to that is to what extent we can specialize, to what extent we can offer deep domain, industry specialized, offerings to our client, and that's where we can probably get some premium. So that's what we are trying to do as well. While we have and accept the commoditization, we are also trying to specialize in a lot of ways.
Okay, I will come to Vineet for his set of questions. How will data science area be impacted due to the market changes and the customers? Anything that you want to have insights in this area? Data science?
I think this digitization, standardization, and automation will be critical as businesses focus on solving problems for their customers in innovative, lasting ways. Many CFOs are investing in technologies like cloud and analytics to drive growth, but they will also need people with specialized sales sets.
If I could, just step in and pitch in like a very important question to you, which is that are you as a CFO focused more on responding spontaneously and at the moment when the problem crops up, or are you focusing more on the scenario plannings and all those strategies in prior when the problem comes? So how are you going about the things? Is the response, are you planning for responding spontaneously in that situation, or are you doing aggressive scenario planning, so to say?
No, we really turn to advanced scenario planning and modeling to make strategic capital decisions. We believe that growth in leaner times is possible, but CFOs should be more selective about spending in these times, especially. Despite economic headwinds, financial leaders shouldn't lose sight of their long-term growth goals. But with less margin of error in these times, it is critical to invest more selectively with an eye towards long-term goals.
Okay. One quick question, if I again could ask you, Vineet, and that is, what would be the budget plan to be prepared for any unprecedented situations that we are discussing? And this is the question by Kiran Kotagi.
See, for 2023, as I said, that the company should be more selective, and as they grow, as they go in the 2023, they have to revisit to their strategies and see how the economy is panning out, and then take it from there.
Okay. So Neetu, I also again have an array of questions specifically for you as well, which is being asked by audience. I think there is a question in respect of how you going about measures for protecting margins and profits.
So for protecting the margins, the important thing, what we are doing in our organization is on the input cost, that how are we controlling our input cost, internal costs. So there is a very huge focus on it. And the most important thing is that when the costs are coming, how are we reacting to it in the market side? So those are important things. Price realizations is something very important to keep the margins intact. Some of the costs which can be passed on, some of the internal costs which have to be really looked into very critically, because that's the key to maintain the margins.
Okay, and likewise, again, a question which is a similar question been asked, and that is, what would be your budget plan to be prepared for any unprecedented situations that may come?
It's very tricky question, because as I said that the situation is so dynamic. So being conservative is the key, and being very critical into many of the areas of spending is important. And that's how we have to really look at how do we maintain our budget. But situation is so dynamic that it keeps on changing. So how quickly we react to it is the key.
Okay, can I ask you like a follow-up question to this, which is, are you planning to hold yourself back in 2023 in respect of your investments, looking at the scenario?
Absolutely. So investments have to be looked into critically, because this is required right now. We don't know how the market is really moving forward, and so there is something called as important, and also there's something called as good to have. So really, what is good to have and what is important is the major role of a CFO, I would have to say, to look into that what's really required for the business, which we have to go forward with, but some things can be kept on hold. So investments, yes, we are looking at it again very critically. That is it required right now, or can we defer it for some time?
Okay, there's another question, Neetu, for you, and that is by Manoj Rawat. He's asking, what's going to be the role of the green energy for big industries? Are there any hurdles in the future? Any comments on this?
The
role of green energy for the big industries. Role of green
energy. Okay. Yes, I would say that the green energy for companies like us, which are into transport industry or into construction equipment industry, we are doing quite more onto the green energy. When it comes to CO2 emission, I would say Volvo Group has signed the SBT targets, and we are following SBTI to have about 50% reduction in CO2 emission within the company or within the group, and 30% with the suppliers. So we are looking at the entire value chain as well. How do we reduce the CO2 emissions as by partnering along with our suppliers? Another important point is that how we quickly bring in the electric vehicles also in the market, not only being restricted to the two-wheelers, the way four-wheeler market, the cars are being introduced into the system or into our economy. The next step is towards trucks, and we are doing a bit on the electrification, also on the construction equipment. So yes, green energy, we are doing a lot. I would say across the globe, there have been many initiatives, and Volvo Group has got quite a good business, or I would say a good business share on the electric vehicles, and we are coming up in India as well.
The mantra for the finance leaders to navigate the uncertain times in 2023. So let me start with Nandu. You again. What is your mantra for the finance leaders? A piece of advice for the finance leaders to navigate 2023. One quick thing.
So I think on top would be to be extremely agile.
Agile is the mantra for you. Vineet, if I could come to you for your mantra for finance leaders to navigate 2023.
My mantra will be that we should be very selective, invest towards long-term goals, be cautious, have some liquidity in your hands, revisit pricing models, and adjust the budgets as the situation arises.
Okay, adjust the budget as per the situation arises. Nagesh, your quick mantra for the finance leaders.
Yeah, so I would say, stay close to the business and customers, be pragmatic on investments. And I would also say that there are more than enough reasons to be optimistic, but be cautiously optimistic.
Okay, cautiously optimistic. It's been something which is the advice since last couple of years, I guess, from the CFO fraternity, which is the cautious optimism. Neetu, what is your mantra for the finance leaders to not only escape through but sail through 2023?
My take is be close to the business, be close to your customers, be conservative, and the most important thing is be resilient.
So again, I will like to thank our eminent August panelist CFOs who took their time for this digital roundtable discussion, as well as very patient and equally August attendees as well. Thank you so much, our CFO audience as well as attendees.